Hey guys, this is Not Chubbs, and today I'm going to show you a somewhat complicated but cool tutorial for the editor in Prodeus. If you have seen the Doom Snap Map tutorial double power station door video on the official Chubbsy Doomer channel, you may have seen how in Snap Map you can unlock a door by putting two power cores on two separate power stations and have the door deactivate once you take a core out. I have always wanted to try to replicate that in Prodeus, and I've found a way to do that. Some people may think, what's wrong with keys and ores? Well, with a single key, you can activate pretty much anything once you have it and not have the object consume the key. With ores, even though they are consumable, you cannot get them back and place it somewhere else. So that's what this tutorial is about, and I'm going to demonstrate how you can make your own detachable keys, or in this case, power cells, that can activate objects when you place them, and that's what I'm going to show you today. Okay, so I have this setup right here. I have the player, a power core, a station that requires one power core, a station that requires two power cores, which is going to activate or deactivate a bridge, a force field bridge. This for this door. I'm going to do something later right here in this room that has the blue key. And in this final room, three power cores, single power core stations to power up this portal right here. So the first thing you want to do is that you want to simulate the player picking up this power core. And in order to do that, we're going to need four functions. First, you're going to need the button. This is the first object. I'm going to set it to enabled, volume size default of 4. Button size, well, first you want to set it to cube, 1 by 2 by 1. And I also want the player to show the HUD message when it's close to it, so make sure that's checked. And you can place it, but I'm going to do that later because I want to be able to select the object. Or maybe I can just place it there right now. Okay, now the second function you want to grab is the container. This is what's going to allow us to make the power cord disappear when we press the button. In order to do that, we want to select the power core object, assign parent, and select the container. I'm going to name this power cell or power core, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it the power cell. And when we activate this button, you want it to be only pressed once, so I'm going to check disable after button press, and now we want the button on press success. Go to the container and set it to deactivate. See, it starts as active. That means anything that is attached to the container, which is this power core, it's going to start as shown and interactable when the game starts. But with this button, when we activate the container or deactivate it, it's going to make anything attached to the container, which is this power cell, to disappear. So now the next thing that you want, because we don't want it to just disappear, we want to notify the player that they picked up a power core or power cell. So with this HUD message, I'm going to set it to 2 seconds. Primary HUD message, I'm going to say power cell obtained. So also when you press this button, I'm going to set it to activate. And now the last thing you want, the last function, which is the function that does all the work and all the magic to count how many cells you have, and you can do many cool stuff with this, is the variable integer, or VarInt as it's called. The node name is called VarInt clone. PowerCell. And now here's the most important part, the variable name. So any integer object or the variable integer object that shares this name is going to work on the same logic and have the same count. So I'm going to set this to PowerCells held. So when we pick this up or activate the switch and simulate the player picking the cell up, on press success, I want it to add, which is going to be like adding to count. Now, here's what it does. It adds whatever is in the integer value. And we don't want this set to 0, we want it set to 1. So it's going to add 1 to the PowerCells held count in the game. So let's test it to see if it works. Now, PowerCell obtained. So that's step 1 complete. Now for step 2. This is where it's going to get a lot more complicated. And if you see this little force field here, that's just a invisible space to keep the player from walking inside the station. So now once again, I'm going to put a button, cube, 1 by 2 by 1. It's going to be the same shape as the PowerCell. But I'm not just going to have one button, I'm going to have 2 buttons. So this one is going to set to attempt, place, cell. I'm going to have this one enabled. But you also want to duplicate that, and you want a different switch that says take cell. And the take cell, we don't want it to be active, we want it to be inactive after it is pressed. And also disable after button press, because when we take out a cell, we want it to be deactivated as well. Oh, and also make sure to show the HUD message for both buttons. Okay, so now here comes the more complicated part. Again, you want to get a container. I'm going to move it right up here. I'm going to select this, assign parent to the container. But this time, wait, let me move it to the station itself. We want this object, this PowerCell object, it's parented to the container, but we want the PowerCell on the station to not be shown at the start. So you want to you want this to be unchecked. Okay, so now go to variables. First, you want to get this, copy PowerCells held in the variable name, because we're going to use the same for this. So on press success, we want it to variable test on var test. When this happens, we want it to count what we have set in the integer value. So I'm going to set it to 1. And since it's set to test, it's going to check how many is in the integer value. In the game, it's already set to 0, so it's going to check if there's 1. And that's going to happen after you picked up this cell. But since you haven't, if the player hasn't picked up the cell, and if it requires 1, when a button targets the var test, it's going to activate these. So I'm going to go down to HUD message. Display time is 2 seconds. I'm going to type in, you have no power cells. So on var less, activate this. So if the count is at 0, which is before picking this up ever, it's going to activate this since it's less than 1 if the player didn't activate this by picking up this, pressing this button and picking up the power cell and activating this. So what if we want the player, so if the player does have a power cell picked up, or as what we say in the logic, also, you want to paste the logic, the same variable name, power cells held, on this, and you want to do the same for this, power cells held. So yes, you're going to want to have this variable integer activate this one too. Check for cells, just to make it organized. So if you have at least one or more, we wanted to subtract, because the player is going to try to place a cell and take one cell out of the inventory. So I'm going to set that to 1. But also, when this is activated on relay, set this to activate, which is going to simulate placing the cell. But also, since if this is activated, if you place a cell, we want it to deactivate this button. And also, I want another HUD message. And again, this display time is 2 seconds. I want it to say power cell placed. On relay, activate. But also, I want the player to be able to take the cell back out. So I'm going to put in a relay node. Minimum delay of 2 seconds. And another 2 seconds. So after it is placed, activate this relay. And on relay, reset. Since it's disabled by default, the relay is going to reset it, which is going to enable the button to allow us to take the cell. But let's first test it to see if the logic is working. Okay, so it looks like the logic is working. I haven't moved the buttons properly yet because I'm still working on it. Okay, so now we want to simulate picking the cell back up and adding it to the inventory. So again, I'm going to make sure this is copied. Go to functions and variables, variable integer again. Take cell. And again, paste Powercells held. Set it to 1 because I'm taking one cell out. When we activate the take button, set it to add. Again, this is the take cell, so we want to simulate the power cell being taken out of the station. So we want this button to deactivate the container, which is attached to the power cell, in order to make the power cell disappear off the station. And again, another HUD message to notify the player once they pick up the cell. Primary display time is 2 seconds. Power cell taken. And again, I want another relay in order to reactivate the place or attempt to place cell button. So again, I'm going to have another relay. Reactivate place cell button. And for this, activate take cell button. Again, I want the minimum delay and maximum delay to be 2 seconds, just like this one. Reset. Because placing the cell, the integer node that takes 1 from the value is going to deactivate this button, because that's when you successfully place the power cell in. On relay, for the take cell integer, activate. So let me drag the buttons back in and centered onto the power cell station. Now let's see if the logic actually works. I'm going to make extra sure that it works, so I'm going to place another Powercells station right here. Play map. You have no power cells. You have no power cells. Power cell obtained. Power cell placed. You have no power cells. Let's try taking it. Power cell placed. And I actually missed a step. You may have noticed that the HUD message wasn't activated, even though the logic did function properly. So again, for this button, you can do it from here or from the take cell button. I'm going to use the take cell button to activate this HUD message. Power cell taken. So let me reattempt to do this one more time. Copy and paste this whole set. I'm going to place it over here, just so it'll be easier for me to delete it once I'm done. Okay, play map. Let's test it again. No power cells. No power cells. Pick up the cell. Power cell obtained. Power cell placed. Again, no power cells. Power cell taken. Power cell placed. Okay, now let's see if we can put it back in. And the logic actually works. So now that you've got Now that we've got that out of the way, let's try to activate something once we place a power cell here on the station. We're going to use this door. I'm going to grab a mover. Raise it up by 3 units with 0.5 seconds. Attach this door object to the mover. And in order to activate this once it raises up, you want this, which is what takes one power cell out of the inventory from Powercells out, which places the power cell and activates something. So we want this to be set to set destination end. And in order to make it close, we want this to deactivate the door and close. And since these two buttons are already stuck together, I'm just going to use this to avoid confusion. Set destination start. And also, I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to add another power station since I want to expand this map. I'm going to place another power cell over here for the player to pick up. And I'm going to copy and paste this whole set over here because I'm trying to make a puzzle over here. And it looks like all the logic is copied and pasted. So let's test it out again. Again, have no power cells. This requires a blue key. Power cell obtained. Power cell placed. And now let's see what happens if we deactivate it. It closes. Okay, now with the power cell placed, door is opened. Now we can grab the blue key, but because we have no power cells, we need to come back and grab it. And with the blue key, we can open this door and place the power cell here. Now we can take this power cell. Now we can have both doors opened and take both power cells. So now we're going to do something with this. So now the logic is working as I intended, as what we want. So now I'm going to copy all this again. I don't need these objects, I just want this. I'm going to manually change this. Now I want this to be attached to the container, assign parent, right here. Let's move this right here. That's going to be our double power core station. Now I want to change the button size since it's wider. 1, 2, 2. But now since we want this power station to require 2 power cores, I'm going to grab all these integers and set them to 2. All 3 of them. And you also want to do the same for the HUD messages. Change the HUD messages to. For this, I'm going to change it to you need 2 power cells. I'm going to set this to 2 power cells placed. And I want to do the same thing for this. 2 power cells taken. Now I want this power station to activate this force field bridge. Let me go grab this again. Let's drag it over here. This is going to be our 3rd power cell on the map. Now I want to be able to deactivate or activate this bridge. So I'm going to set a container right here. Force field bridge. You don't have to name these container nodes, but it's just for conveniency. And attach this force field bridge to the container, and since it's deactivated at the start of the map, you want this to be unchecked, to be not interactable and not visible at the start of the map until you want it to activate. So again, I'm going to go to the integer that places the cells and activates the objects and set it to activate. You want to do the opposite for the integer that puts the cell back into the inventory, takes the cells out of the power station, and deactivate. So now it's set to 2, set to 2. 2 power cells required, 2 power cells taken or placed. Okay, let's play the map again. You need 2 power cells. 1. You have no power cells, let's place this one. Still need a power cell, let's go through this door. And a 2nd power cell. Take a power cell out of that station. Let's place one here and see what we try to happen. Oh, I used 1 of my 2 power cells, so let's put them right here. Oh, we activated the force field bridge. So now it's deactivated again. And now reactivated. Pick up the power cell. Now you have 3 power cells in the inventory that you programmed. Okay. So now there's one more thing, one more trick I'm going to do with these power cells. I'm just going to delete these. I'm just going to copy and paste these objects. I'm going to delete that door again. I'm copy and pasting the door as well, so I don't have to. If you just copy and paste the power cell without grabbing the door, it's gonna then the copy and pasted integers are gonna stay attached to this node right here. That's why I'm also copy and pasting the door, then deleting the door afterwards. Okay, so I'm gonna make 3 power stations right here. Duplicate, and then duplicate again. Okay, so now I have 3 power stations. Now I want it to be able to count up to 3 power cells to activate it, but I'm going to need some new variables with new logic. First, I'm going to have this base node on var equal to activate the portal, but also on var less to deactivate. And yes, that's another thing I should go over. If you have 1 power cell or more than 1 power cell, you want to be able to activate being able to take 1 from count. Because if you only have it set to equal, it's not going to do anything even though you have more than 1 power cell once you pick up 2 of them or more. But for this time I want this integer to be a different name. I'm going to set this to portal power, and I want it to require 3. And once again, I'm going to duplicate this. Let's take those outputs off. This time, yes, these both have the same variable name logic for portal power. I'm going to set this to count of integer value of 1, because that's what these are going to be for. And every time this is activated, I want it to, on relay from this one, on var test to this one. See, when the count reaches 3, it's going to activate the portal, and when it goes off from 3, on var less, it's going to deactivate the portal. So how do we get the power stations to add 1 to the logic? Well, since this one is supposed to power up something, on relay, add, which adds 1 to the count, and every time this is activated, it's going to check for this. But whenever we take a core out, on relay, set to subtract, and you want to do the same for the other 2 stations. On relay for this one, add. On relay for the take cell, subtract 1. On relay for this one, add. On relay for take cell, subtract. So now let's see. So now it's supposed to work. Now let's see what happens when we test out the map. No power cells. Requires 3 stations. Let's grab this. Get this power core. Take it out. Get the power cell from the bridge. Take these 2 power cells. Just to check to see if the logic works. 2 power cells. We use 3. You have no power cells. You have no power cells. So let's take the 2 here. Power cell placed. Power cell placed. And look, the portal is activated. So let's see what happens when you take a power cell out. Power cell taken. Power cell placed. Let's do it again for this one. And there we go. The logic actually works and activates the portal. And there we go. Level complete. So that's how you can make your own keys and detachable power cells or power cores. And to be more convenient, you can also save them separately as structures, which I already did. Let me go to my asset browser, custom, power cells. You can see how I have multiple different colors and variations of power cells. I have one that requires yellow power cells, so you can do all kinds of tricks with them. I have one for the yellow power cells and another for red power cells. So yeah, this does. You can do a whole kinds of tricks and mechanics with this variable integer. So I hope you learned something from this and hope you can come up with pretty cool ideas for Prodeus levels. So yes, this is Darkstar, and hope you all have a great life.